welcome to the next edition of the HP Discover podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on IT innovation and how it's making an impact on people's lives. Our next big data discussion explores how a triumvirate of big data players have teamed to deliver a rapid and efficient analysis capability across disparate data types for the healthcare industry. We'll learn how the drive for better patient outcomes amid economic efficiency imperatives have created demand for a new type of big data implementation model. This model, with support from Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Microsoft, and Sogeti, leverages a nimble big data platform, converged solutions, hybrid cloud, and deep vertical industry expertise. The result is innovative and game-changing insights across healthcare ecosystems of providers, patients, and payers. The ramp-up to these novel insights is rapid, and the cost per analysis value is very aggressive. Here to share the story on how the data-driven decisions for healthcare initiative arose and why it portends more similar vertical industry-focused solutions, we're joined here today by Bob Leroy, Vice President in the Global Microsoft Practice and Manager of the HP Alliance at Sogeti USA, and he's based in Cincinnati. Welcome, Bob.
Hi, Dana. Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you came. It's a very interesting story. So let's set the stage a bit, Bob. Why the drive for a new model for big data and analytics in healthcare? What are some of the drivers, some of the trends that have made this necessary now?
Yeah, one of the big ones, and everybody's probably very familiar with the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. They've put a lot of changes in place for the healthcare industry, and primarily it's around cost containment. But beyond that, the industry itself understands that they need to improve the quality of care that they're delivering to patients. And that's really around outcomes. You know, how can we affect the care and the wellness of individuals? And so it's around cost, it's around the quality of the care, but it's also about how the industry itself is changing, both from how providers are now doing more with payments and how classic payers are doing more to actually provide care themselves. And there's this blur between the lines of payer and provider. Some of these people are actually becoming what we call accountable care organizations. And we see literally a new one of these accountable care organizations come up each week where they're both payer and provider.
So that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, not only do we have a dynamic economic landscape, but the ability to identify what works and what doesn't work can really be important, especially when we're dealing with multiple players, multiple data types. This is really not just knowing your own data. This is knowing data across organizational boundaries.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, there's a lot of different data models that exist when you look at things like big data and the volume of data that exists out in the field. And how do you put that data to use to really understand who are your critical patients and how can that affect your operations?
Okay, why then do we look to a triangulated solution between players like Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Microsoft, and Sogeti? What is it about the problem that you're trying to solve that has led it to a partnership type of solution?
Sogeti has been a long-term partner with Microsoft. The tools that Microsoft provides are one of the strengths of Sogeti. With HP, we've been working now for almost 2 years, and it's a great triangulation between the three companies because Microsoft provides some software, HP provides the hardware, and Sogeti provides the services to deliver some really innovative solutions to customers and do it in a rapid way. And what you're getting is best in class in all three of those categories: the software, the hardware, and the services.
Now, there's another angle to this, too, and it's about the cloud delivery model. How does that factor into this? When we've talked about hardware, it sounds like there's an on-premises aspect to it, but how does the cloud play a role?
everybody wants to hear about the cloud, and certainly it's important in this space too, because of the type of data that we're collecting. You could consider social data or data from third-party software as a service applications. And that data is going to exist everywhere. You have your on-premise data and you have your off-premise data, and the tools that we're using in this case from HP and Microsoft really lend themselves well to developing a converged environment to deliver best in class across those different environments, so that they are secure, they're delivered quickly, and they provide the information and the insights that the hospitals and the insurance companies really need.
And so what's interesting to me, Bob, is the deep insights that are required to understand taxonomy, definitions, to be able to use data effectively. What is it about your experience at Sogeti within the healthcare industry that brings that capability of insight into the vertical that helps make the data relevant?
Yeah, and this is one of the things that Sogeti's bringing to the table. Sogeti's part of the Capgemini group. Capgemini is a global organization with 150,000 employees, and Sogeti's one of the 5 strategic business units of the Capgemini group. And where Sogeti's strength is, we're really focused on the technology and the implementations of technology, and we're focused on several different verticals, healthcare being one of them. So we have experts on the technology stacks, but we also have experts in healthcare itself. So people that we've actually pulled from the healthcare industry, taught them what we do in the IT world, so they can help us focus best practices and technologies to solve real healthcare organization problems. Again, so that we can get towards the quality of care and the cost reduction that the Affordable Care Act is really looking for. And I think that's a real strength that's going to add significant value to healthcare organizations.
Right. Yeah, it's very important, I think, to see that one size does not fit all when it comes to these systems, that having verticalization is required, and you all are embarking on a retail equivalent to this model, and manufacturing and other sectors might come along as well. Okay, let's look at why this approach to this problem is so innovative. What have been some of the problems that have held back the ability of large organizations and even mid-sized organizations in the healthcare vertical industry from getting these insights? What are some of the hurdles that they've had to overcome and that perhaps beg for a new and different model and a new approach?
Well, there's a couple of different factors. For sure, it's the complexity of the data itself. The data is distributed over a wide variety of different systems. So it's hard to get a full picture of a patient or a certain care program because the systems are spread out all over the place. And when the system's in so many different ways, it ends up with you get part of the data. You don't get the full picture. So we call that poor data quality. And that really makes it hard for somebody that's doing some analysis to really understand and gain insight from their data. So then, of course, there's also the existing structure that's in place within organizations, right? They've been around for a long time. People are sometimes resistant to change. So you take all of those things together, and you end up with a slow response time to delivering the data that they're looking for. Access to the data becomes very complex or difficult for an end user, perhaps, or somebody that's a business analyst. And then the cost of changing those structures can be pretty expensive. If you look at all those things together, it really slows down an organization's ability to understand the data that they've got and gain insights about their business.
Sure, and when we used to refer to data warehouses just a few years ago, it was a fairly large undertaking. It would take months to put these into place, require a data center or some sort of a leasing arrangement, and of course a significant amount of upfront costs. So how has this new model approached those cost and I suppose length of time or ramp up time issues?
Yeah, and Microsoft's model that they put in place to support their analytics platform system allows them to license their tools at a lower price. But the other thing that's really made a difference is the way HP's put together their converged system that allows us to tie these hybrid environments together to aggregate the data in a very simple solution that provides a lot of performance. So if I've got to look at unstructured data and structured data, I often need two different systems. HP's providing a box that's going to allow me to put both into a single environment, so that's going to reduce my cost a lot. They've also delivered it in an appliance way, so I don't need to spend a lot of time buying servers, provisioning servers, configuring servers, setting up software, and all those things. I can just order this converged system from HP, put it in my data center, and I'm almost ready to go. So that's the second thing that really helps save a lot of time. But the third one is Sogeti Services. We've got some intellectual property to help the data integration from these different systems and the aggregation of the data. We've put together some software and some accelerators to help make that integration go faster. And then the last piece of that is a data model that structures all this data into a single view that makes it easier for the business people to analyze what they have and understand what they have. Usually it would take you literally years to come up with these data models. Well, Sogeti's put all the time into it and created these models and made it something that we can deliver to a customer much faster because we've already done it. All we have to do is install it in your environment. So I think those three things together, the software pricing from Microsoft, the appliance model from HP, and the intellectual property and the accelerators that Sogeti has.
Great. Bob, let's look at this now through the lens of that consumer, the user. It also wasn't that long ago where most of the people doing analytics were perhaps wearing white lab coats, very accomplished in their particular query languages and technologies. But part of the thinking now for big data is to get it into the hands of more people. What is it that your model, this triumvirate of organizations coming together for a solution approach, does in terms of making this data more available? What are the outputs? Who can query it? And how has that had an impact in the marketplace?
Yeah, we've been trying to get this to the end users for 30 years. I've been trying to get reports in the hands of users and let them do their own analysis. And every time I get to a point where I think, all right, this is the answer, and the users are going to be able to do their own reports, and that frees up guys in the IT world like me to go off and do other things, doesn't always work. This time, though, it's really interesting that I think we've got it. We allow the users access directly to the data using the tools that they already know. So I'm not going to create and introduce a new tool to them. We're using tools that are very similar to Excel that point to a data source that's well organized for them already, and it's the data that they're already familiar with. So if they're using Microsoft Excel-like tools, they can do power pivots and pivot tables that they've already been doing, but just in an offline manner. Now I can give them direct access to real-time data. So instead of waiting until noon to get reports out, they can go and look online and get the data much sooner, so we can accelerate their access time to it, but delivered in a format that they're comfortable with, and that makes it easier for them to do the analysis and gain their insights without the IT people having to hold their hands.
Great. Perhaps we have some examples that we can look to that would illustrate some of this. What about you mentioned the social media, the cloud-based content or data. How has that come to bear on some of these ways that your users are delivering value in terms of better healthcare analytics?
The best example I have is the ability to bring in data that's not in a structured format. So we often think of external data, but sometimes it's internal data too, maybe x-rays or people doing queries on the internet. I can take all of that structured data and correlate it to my internal electronic medical records or my health information systems that I have on premise. Perhaps if I'm looking at Google Analytics searches, Google searches, If people are looking for keywords such as stress or heart attacks or cardiac care or something like that, those keywords, well, I can map the times that people are looking at those kinds of queries by certain regions and tie that back to my systems and say, okay, what's the behavior or the traffic patterns look like within my facility at those same times? And you can target certain areas to either maybe change my staffing model, if there's a big jump in searches, or maybe I do a campaign to ask people to come in and do a screening, or encourage people to get into their primary care physicians. So there's a lot of things we can do with the data by looking just at the patterns, and it will help us narrow down what areas of our coverage that we need to work with, what geographic areas I need to work on, and how I manage the operations of the organization, just by looking at the different types of data that we have and tying them together. And this is something that we couldn't do before. And it's very exciting to see that we're able to gain such insights and be able to take action against those insights.
Yeah, I can see now why you're calling it the data-driven decisions for healthcare, because you're really applying data science to areas that would probably never have been considered for it before, that people might use intuition or anecdote or deliver evidence that was perhaps not, all that accurate. So maybe you could just illustrate a little bit more ways in which you're using data science and very powerful systems to gather insights into areas that perhaps we just never thought to apply such high-powered tools to before.
Let's see. So another area might be, let's go back to the beginning when we talked about how do we change the quality of care that we're providing. And today, doctors collect diagnosis codes for just about every procedure that we have done. And we don't really look and see how many times is those same procedures repeated, or which doctors are performing which procedures. And let's look at the patients too, and which patients are getting those procedures. So we can tie those diagnosis codes around in a lot of different ways. So let's see, one maybe an easy way is, let's look at how, this is the one that I think I probably would like the best, is I want to know which doctors perform those procedures only once per patient and have the best results come from the treatments that doctor performed. So now I know if I'm a hospital, I know which doctors perform which procedures the best. And I can direct the patients that need those procedures to those doctors that provide the best care. And, the reverse of that might be, well, if the doctor doesn't perform the procedure well, let's avoid sending him those kinds of patients. So now my quality of care goes up, the patient has a better experience, and we're going to do it at a lower cost because we're only doing it once.
Very cool. All right, let's dive into this solution a bit, because I'm intrigued by the fact that this model of bringing a converged infrastructure provider, a software provider, and expertise in the field that crosses the chasm between a technology capability and a vertical industry knowledge base works. So let's dig in a little bit. The Microsoft Analytics Platform System, APS, tell us a little bit about that, what it includes, and why it's powerful and applicable in this situation.
Okay. So the APS, it's Microsoft's Analytical Platform System. It's a solution that combines unstructured data and structured data into a single environment. And we're going to get really technical. It allows the IT guys to run classic SQL or structured query language queries against both. So on one side, we have what used to be called Parallel Data Warehouse. It's a really fast version of SQL Server. It's massively parallel processing, and it can run queries super fast. That's the important part, is I've got structured data that I can get to very quickly. The other half of it is HD Insight, which is Microsoft's open source implementation of Hadoop. Now, Hadoop is all unstructured data. And in between these two things is Polybase. So I can query the two together, and I can join structured and unstructured data together. And then since Microsoft created this APS specification, HP has then implemented that in a box that they call a Converged System 300. And then what Sogeti has done is used that to build our intellectual property against. And so we can consume data from all these different areas, put it into the APS, and deliver that data to an end user through a simple interface like Excel or Power BI or some other visualization tool.
And
Does that make sense?
yes, it does. Just to be clear for our audience, sometimes people hear appliance and they don't think necessarily big scale, but the HP Converged System 300 for the Microsoft APS is quite significant with server, storage, and networking technologies, and large amounts of data, up to 6 petabytes. So we're talking about some fairly significant amounts of data here, not small fry.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, and they put everything into that one rack. You know, we think of appliance as something we can just, like a toaster, right? We plug it in, and that's pretty close to where they are. Not exactly, but you drop this big rack into your data center, and you give it an IP address, and you give it some power. And now you can start to take existing data and put it in there. And it runs extremely well because they've incorporated the networking and the computing platforms and the storage all within a single environment, which is really effective.
Mm-hmm. Of course, one of the big initiatives at Microsoft has been a cloud with Azure. Is there a way in which the HP converged infrastructure in a data center can be used in conjunction with a cloud service like Azure or other cloud, public cloud or infrastructure as a service clouds, or even data warehousing cloud services that accelerates the ability to deliver this fast and or makes it more inclusive of more types of data from more places? How does the public cloud fit into this?
Well, you can distribute this solution across that space. In fact, we take advantage of the cloud delivery as a model. We use a tool called Power BI from Microsoft that allows you to do visualizations. The system from HP is a hybrid solution, so we can distribute it. Some of it can be in the cloud, some of it can be on-prem. It really depends on how your what your needs are and how your different systems are already configured. So it's entirely flexible. We can put all of it on-prem in a single rack or single appliance, or we can distribute it out to the cloud. It's one of the great things about solution that Microsoft and HP put together is it's very much a converged system that allows us to bridge on-prem and the cloud together.
And of course, Bob, those end users that are doing those queries, that are getting insights, they don't probably care where it's coming from as long as they can access it. It works quickly, and the costs are manageable.
Exactly.
Okay, we're getting close to the end of our time. Tell me a little bit about where we take this model next. Clearly, healthcare, big demand, a huge opportunity to improve productivity through insights, improve outcomes while also cutting costs. You've also got a retail approach in that market, in that vertical. How does that work? Is that already available? Tell us a little bit about why the retail was the next one you went to and where it might go next in terms of industries.
Sogeti's focused on 4 major verticals: healthcare, retail, manufacturing, life sciences. So we're kind of going across where we have expertise. The healthcare one's been out now for, 9 months or so, and we see retail as another place where there are point solutions that people have solved part of this equation, but they haven't really dug deep in understanding how to get it from end to end, which is something that Sogeti has done now, where literally from the point a person walks into a store, that we would be alerted through all of these analytics that we've got. We'd be alerted that the person arrived, and take action against that. Right? What can we do to increase our traffic and our sales with individuals? And then aggregate all of that data together. So you're looking at things like customers or inventory or sales across an organization. And that end-to-end piece is something that I think is very unique within the retail space. And then, of course, actually after that, then we're going to go to manufacturing. Everybody likes to talk about Internet of Things today. So we're looking at some very specific use cases on how we can impact manufacturing. So the Internet of Things can help us predict failures right on a manufacturing line. Or if we have maybe heavy equipment out on a job site or in a mine or something like that, that we could better predict when equipment needs to be serviced so we can maximize the manufacturing process time.
Very interesting. Okay, any last thoughts in terms of how people who are interested in this can acquire it? Is this something that is being sold jointly through these three organizations, through Sogeti directly? How is this going to market in terms of how healthcare organizations can either both learn more and or even experiment with it?
Yeah, the best way to do it is to search for us online, and it's mostly being driven by Sogeti and HP. Most of the healthcare providers that are also heavy HP users could be aware of it already, and talking to an HP rep or to a Sogeti rep is certainly the easiest path to move forward on. And we have a number of videos that are out on YouTube that if you look for Sogeti Labs, which is kind of an R&D arm of Sogeti, if you search for Sogeti Labs and demand data-driven decisions, you'll certainly find my name and a short video that shows it. And of course, sales reps and customers are welcome to contact either myself or anybody from Sogeti or HP.
Right, and once again, the official name of this initiative is the Data-Driven Decisions for Healthcare. Well, great. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been discussing how a triumvirate of big players, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Microsoft, and Sogeti, have teamed to deliver a rapid and efficient analysis capability across disparate data types for the healthcare industry. And we've learned how this new type of big data implementation model quickly and affordably delivers innovative and game-changing insights across ecosystems of providers, patients, and payers in healthcare, and it looks like it's going to soon be doing interesting productivity benefits for retail, manufacturing, and life sciences as well. So join me, please, now in thanking our guest. We've been here with Bob Leroy, Vice President in the Global Microsoft Practice and Manager of the HP Alliance at Sogeti USA, and he's based in Cincinnati. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Dana.
And I'd also like to thank our audience as well for joining us for this big data innovation discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett Packard Enterprise sponsored discussions. Thanks again for listening, and do